Welcome back, gearheads, to RetroWheelsVault European Special, where elegance and adrenaline collide. Today we're diving into the 1973 Ferrari 365 GT4 BB, a car so sharp it could slice bread at 200 miles an hour, unlocking the finest machines from across the pond. Built in Europe, driven by legends. Here's a juicy slice of automotive drama. The 365 GT4 BB wasn't just born from engineering ambition, it was Ferrari's bold answer to Lamborghini's Miura, the car that had everyone whispering, "This is the future of supercars." Until then, Ferrari had been cautious about mid-engine road cars, worried that putting a V12 behind the driver might turn a Sunday drive into an unintended game of bumper billiards. Essentially, they feared their customers would end up wrestling the car instead of enjoying it. But the BB flipped the script. With its rear mid-mounted Flat-12, Ferrari showed the world they could take the Miura's concept, add a touch of Italian bravado, and produce something equally thrilling yet unmistakably Ferrari. It was like watching two master chefs compete. Lamborghini had the flamboyant presentation, but Ferrari brought both elegance and bite. The BB didn't just compete, it made a statement. Ferrari wasn't afraid to innovate, even if it meant challenging their own traditions. It was a calculated risk that paid off, giving drivers a machine that combined exotic performance with the reliability of a thoroughbred. In the process, it cemented the 365 GT4 BB as a legend, a gladiator in the arena of Euro supercars, ready to duel anyone brave enough to take the wheel. Following the Daytona's thunderous debut in '69, Ferrari's engineers, led by Dr. Angelo Bellet, set out to craft its successor, the 365 GT4 BB. But instead of simply retooling the Daytona, they flipped tradition on its head, literally. Out went the front-mounted V12 and in came a rear-mounted Flat-12, a layout that was more Formula One pit lane than Italian Boulevard. Styled at Pininfarina under Leonardo Fioravanti, the car drew inspiration from the radical P6 Berlinetta Speciale concept. Sleek, low, and wedge-shaped, the 365 GT4 BB looked less like a Grand Tour and more like a spaceship ready to storm the Autostrada. Wind tunnel testing helped refine the details, giving the car a steeply raked windscreen, hidden headlamps as well, and a spoiler bridging the twin buttresses like an aerodynamic tightrope. Materials were a clever mix: steel for the central body, aluminum for the clamshell covers and doors, and fiberglass for the bumpers, lightweight armor for this Italian gladiator. Even its two-tone boxer paint scheme worked like visual contouring, slimming the car's profile while giving it extra attitude. By the time it hit showrooms in '73, the 365 GT4 BB wasn't just a replacement for the Daytona, it was Ferrari's bold step into a mid-engine future. At the heart of the 1973 Ferrari 365 GT4 BB was a piece of mechanical poetry, the 4.4-liter F102A Flat-12. Think of it as 12 opera singers packed into an aluminum silicone concert hall, each piston hitting notes at 7,200 RPM. The numbers were impressive too. 339 horses, 302 foot-pounds of torque, and enough revs to make your right foot feel like it was conducting an orchestra. With an 81mm bore and 71mm stroke, this engine was more over-square sprinter than long-distance runner, eager to scream rather than lumber. Ferrari kept the weight down with Sulumin alloy block and heads, a forged steel crankshaft, and lightweight alloy pistons, an Italian chef's recipe of strength and delicacy. 4 triple-choke Weber 40 IF3C carburetors fed air and fuel like a row of master sommeliers pouring fine wine into 12-ear glasses. Compression sat at 8.8 to 1, not extreme by today's standards, but just right for unleashing smooth, linear power across the rev range. The result? A mid-engine machine that didn't just accelerate. It lunged forward with the hunger of a predator. The Daytona may have been the tenor, but the 365 GT4 BB's Flat-12 was the full-blown symphony, echoing through every tunnel like a rolling cathedral of speed. Ferrari didn't just give the 365 GT4 BB a monster Flat-12 and call it a day. They paired it with a drivetrain worthy of its pedigree. At the core was a 5-speed manual transaxle, positioned at the rear to balance weight and keep the car planted like a cat ready to pounce. This wasn't some soft automatic that let you sip espresso while cruising. It was a gearbox that demanded your attention, respect, and probably a strong left calf from all the clutch work. Each shift through that gated lever was a mechanical handshake, solid, deliberate, and immensely satisfying. The transaxle layout meant the transmission and differential were combined into a single housing, reducing complexity and improving weight distribution. In other words, Ferrari didn't just hand you a set of gears. They designed the entire system to work in perfect harmony with the mid-mounted engine. Driving the BB meant becoming part of the machine, rolling through gears with precision, feeling the torque surge through the drivetrain as if the car itself was urging you to push harder. Smooth when mastered, brutal if mistreated, the 5-speed manual turned every stretch of road into a stage, and you, the lucky driver, into a lead performer. The 365 GT4 BB didn't just rely on its engine for thrills. It had the bones of a true thoroughbred. Its chassis was built from steel tubing, Ferrari's go-to recipe at the time, but with a twist. Dr. Ing Angelo Bellet borrowed inspiration from the race-bred 250LM and the nimble Dino 206-246, giving the Boxer a structure that was equal parts strength and finesse. The central bodywork formed a semi-monocoque with the steel chassis, while the front and rear bodywork was unstressed, riding on light subframes. In practical terms, the BB had a skeleton tough enough for gladiatorial combat, but flexible enough to absorb blows. Ferrari even thought about safety, a rare treat in the 1970s. The front subframe was designed to deform in a crash, and two massive diagonal tubes ran from the engine cradle to the roof, offering rollover protection like the car had its own internal roll cage. Underneath, all four wheels danced to the tune of double wishbone independent suspension. Single coil over shocks up front and twin shocks out back kept things poised. Add dual anti-roll bars, rack and pinion steering, and disc brakes all around, and you had a car that didn't just go fast, it cornered and stopped like a pro athlete in a tailor-made Italian shoes. Step inside this Ferrari and you'll find an interior that's all business, with just enough flair to remind you it's Italian. Designed by Pininfarina, the cabin was minimalist yet purposeful. Leather bucket seats hugged you tighter than a Roman embrace, while the iconic gated shifter sat proudly in the center, daring you to roll through the gears like a maestro conducting an orchestra. Vega gauges kept everything honest, their dials a reminder that performance, not plushness, was the true priority here. But don't mistake minimalist for bare bones. Ferrari sprinkled in just enough technology to keep the BB civilized. Power steering made sure your arms didn't feel like you'd been wrestling gladiators after a spirited drive. Electric windows offered a touch of convenience, and air conditioning controls sat neatly on the center console, because even legends need to stay cool. And for those long highway runs, the Blumpunkt car audio system with its cassette player let you swap between the Flat-12's operatic howl and whatever mixtape you'd cooked up. However, overall, the 365 GT4 BB struck a perfect balance between raw performance and understated style. It wasn't just a driver's car, it was Ferrari redefining what a road-going supercar interior could be. Power is nothing without control, and Ferrari knew the 365 GT4 BB needed more than just a screaming Flat-12 to tame the road. That's where the ZF limited slip differential came in. Think of it as the referee in a wrestling match between the rear tires, making sure both got their fair share of grip when the power hit the pavement. Without it, you'd be painting black stripes on every corner like an over-enthusiastic calligrapher. The steering was old school and pure, non-powered rack and pinion. That meant every bump, groove, and curve came straight to your fingertips. No filter. Parking might have been a workout, but once at speed, it gave you the precision of a surgeon with a scalpel. Stopping duties were handled by four-wheel disc brakes, which gave the BB the ability to scrub speed as confidently as it gained it. As for shoes, Ferrari wrapped the Berlinetta Boxer in Michelin XWX tires, size 215/70 VR15 front and rear. Later models went staggered with wider rear tires because, let's face it, the Flat-12 had a habit of overwhelming the rubber out back. In short, the 365 GT4 Berlinetta Boxer didn't just run wild, it was engineered to keep the beast firmly under control. On paper, the Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer's dimensions read like a blueprint of an exotic predator. At 173.2 inches long, it wasn't oversized. It was just the right length to prowl city streets without dragging its tail. With a width of 72 inches, it had the stance of a linebacker, broad enough to plant itself firmly on the road, but still lithe enough to dance through winding corners. Its height? A mere 44.1 inches. That's less car and more rolling pancake, forcing drivers to practically fold themselves in like origami every time they climbed inside. The wheelbase stretched 98.4 inches, striking a balance between a stability at high speeds and agility when carving through tighter bends. And then there's the curb weight, 2,685 pounds. For a V12 powered machine of the 1970s, that was remarkably lean, like an athlete trimmed for competition rather than a heavyweight cruiser. Ferrari's clever use of lightweight alloys and smart engineering meant the BB carried itself with the grace of a gymnast rather than the heft of a sumo wrestler. In short, the 365 GT4 BB's dimensions weren't just numbers. They were carefully chosen proportions that made this mid-engine masterpiece both beautiful to look at and thrilling to drive. The Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer was a masterpiece, but like all great works of art, it had its strengths and quirks. Let's start with the good. The biggest strength was, of course, its mid-mounted Flat-12 engine, a thunderous powerhouse that transformed every drive into a front-row seat at an Italian opera. Its chassis and suspension, borrowed from Ferrari's racing bloodline, gave it agility and balance that made the Daytona feel like yesterday's news. Add in Pininfarina's stunning wedge-shaped design, complete with that iconic two-tone boxer paint, and you had a car that could stop traffic even when standing still. In the early 1970s, this wasn't just a car. It was a rolling manifesto that Ferrari was ready to redefine the supercar. Now the weaknesses. For starters, the BB demanded respect from its driver. The non-power steering at low speeds made parking feel like an upper body workout, and visibility was more peeking through a mailbox slot than panoramic. Cabin comfort was, let's say, secondary to performance. And those carburetors, while glorious when tuned, could be temperamental divas if neglected. Still, these quirks only added to the Berlinetta's mystique. Its strengths made it legendary, and its weaknesses reminded you that driving one was a privilege, not just transportation. And there you have it, the 1973 Ferrari 365 GT4 BB, a car that didn't just follow the rules of performance, it rewrote them. From its mid-mounted Flat-12 that growls like a caged lion to its wedge-shaped design that looks ready to slice through wind itself, the Berlinetta was Ferrari flexing its creative muscles. Every detail, from the gated shifter to the boxer paint scheme, screamed precision, passion, and unapologetic Italian flair. It's a car that demands attention, respect, and yes, a little bit of elbow grease if you want to tame it. But now we turn it over to you. If you could take the 365 GT4 BB for a day, would you push it to the limit on a twisty mountain road, or cruise it like a highway loaf of bread in a Sunday parade? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to see who's the daring gladiator and who's the careful connoisseur. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a ride. Remember, Euro Icons, Retro Soul, only in the vault. Until next time, keep your foot on the pedal and your eyes on the horizon.